Welcome to another episode of The Nines presented by AT&T here on the Cloud9 channel. Joining me for this episode are Reignover, who is now not head coach. What's your official title now, Reignover?
My official
Co-head coach?
title? No, I don't think so. I mean, my official title is just assistant coach,
Assistant coach.
Yeah.
Okay. And head jungler, Blaber, is here. He used to be assistant jungler to Svenskeren, but he has been promoted to head jungler as of last year. So thank you for joining us. So Reignover, a lot of people are probably wondering, has your job actually changed significantly since the coaching change now that Mithy has stepped into the head coaching role?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Mithy is just taking all the responsible role, I mean, I talk a little bit more context in the announcement video. I mean, that's pretty much it. And I have been able to just more just like sit behind and then just help Mithy and help Blubber from like the role that I'm like more like expert in, I guess, in somewhat, or like just more comfort, I would say. Yeah.
So Bleber, has he been helping you more with, has he been focused on kind of being a positional coach to you? Obviously, Reignover is a very accomplished professional jungler himself. So how has that coaching and relationship been going for you?
Yeah, pretty much since the swap, Raynor has been mainly focusing on working with me. Like before, when Raynor was head coach, it would be a lot harder for him to talk specifically with me. Like at least during the games, because he would always have to lead review, and then a lot of times it's kind of a waste of time to talk about jungle pathing the whole review, right? So now he can pretty much talk to me about it one on one, like during review or afterwards, and it's definitely been very helpful.
What are the things that you guys have been working on in particular over the last couple of weeks?
Mm, I mean, starting from like a level one, like start like jungle pathing into just like a small goals you can like abuse, since like a crop timing or dragon timing or like buff timing, herald timing, just generally just everything you can abuse from the factors in game, I would say, is something we're working on, and like also like a win condition of like when we play strong jungle, win condition of when we play like weak jungle, just like I mean just a lot of things, right? Like I don't think you can like say specifically, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean,
Anything, Bleber, that's been particularly helpful for you?
yeah, I agree with Leonard on that point. I think a lot of things that we look at are invade timings that we can do as a team. Obviously, we watch VODs of other regions and we discuss jungle path things that other junglers do that are unique, and like why or how they hover and turn those into objectives. They path a certain way to do these objectives at like 5 minutes with priority, and um, like reasonings why they do these things. And it's definitely been very helpful to just talk about and try ourselves, right? To see how good it is.
So since you guys have come back from MSI, obviously you haven't had the same level of dominance that you would like, but also I think a lot of the criticism is kind of overstated because so far you've played through 2 round robins now within the LCS so we're 2/3 of the way done with the season. Because your spring record is still there, you're still in overall very good shape for the playoffs. In fact, I believe last week you qualified for the playoffs definitively, correct?
Yeah, I believe so. I think we made it last week. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think you guys are locked in for the playoffs right now. You are 22-14 overall. You've gone 9-9, so 50% in terms of your overall record. Even in the last couple of weeks, you had a 2-1 week last week, a 1-2 week, or 2 weeks ago, 1-2 week this past weekend. So you're at 50% overall. Now that's not a bad record. You guys have actually taken down some top teams. You've also faced against some teams like Evil Geniuses that are on a really big hot streak right now. Since you've come back from MSI, what do you think because there was a big meta shift, what are the biggest things that you guys think you've had to work on and you're working towards right now? If you had to kind of identify some of the issues that have happened with the team.
You want to go first, Blower?
You can go first.
I mean, I would say the biggest part is was making us struggle is like a meta shift.
Yep.
Because I feel like as a team, we function so much more better and we can use strength way better if the meta is more aggressive and snowbally, where we can like fight a lot. But I feel like a lot of champs has been like, at least from like a jungle champ perspective, has been pretty much like scaling or supportive, but not like super heavy fight skirmish early game. And also jungle resource gets kind of behind, kind of like worse than before, because we used to be a team where we just really play around jungle, and like we first pick a certain jungle champ and we really play around that, pick around that champ so that we can like abuse the champ. But I feel like the meta changes toward not be able to do that specific gameplay, so we have to like learn more from like a scaling perspective, and like how do we play well from like a scaling point of view, or not super snowbally point of view, because also like we try to like force a lot of really snowbally early like champs and comps, but like it tends to like not work as easy as before, and like we have to play way more perfectly, and obviously it's not the best win condition we can have right now. So I would say those are like the biggest change that we're struggling and working right now.
Yeah, on that point, I wanted to ask Blaber, because I think it's very difficult to maintain a high level as a professional jungler in League of Legends, because it's the role that changes the most year to year. It's like Riot may do things to other lanes at the end of the year, but it seems like they always fuck with the jungle a little bit and change it pretty significantly. So maintaining year-to-year consistency across the game changing dramatically in your position is very hard. And not only have you had to deal with that, Blaber, but you had to deal with last year. You had a very, I would say, different team identity. Like if we compare spring last year to spring this year, you went from having a kind of a mid laner and top laner that would play around you and your pressure, and then you were trying to kind of snowball the bot lane more. Whereas now with Perks and Fudge coming in, it feels like you guys have more carry threats, but you maybe don't have the same level of kind of buy-in from your laners or style of your laners to kind of help push your early aggression. So the combination between the big changes in the jungle as well as the changes in teammates, how have you had to like adapt your style to deal with this?
I think, like, yes, for sure. When I had Niski, he would play a lot more for jungle than Luca does, because he would just be more willing to like give up his lane and move for like jungle timings and play not with the team, but like I guess sacrificing his own lane for others. Luca also does that, but he's also very dominant in lane, so he likes to focus on that as well. Like when he plays Lucian type champs. So it's definitely been a transition. I wouldn't say it's been that bad. Um, I think for sure, like jungle meta changing. I think right now, personally, why we're struggling, just because, I mean, jungle is just like low-key not that strong, and compared to like spring of this year and spring of last year, like spring of this year, I was playing champs like Talia, Olaf, Pantheon, and Udyr Hecarim, like the most broken champs in the whole game, where I can just kind of like 1v9 the game. But now it's kind of like when you play champs like Diana, you can't really fight early, Nocturne, and you have to scale, and it feels like we are taking these fights anyways. And I think a lot of the reason we're not having success in a lot of games is because we just get behind a lot early, and that leads to like a lot of our losses. It feels like games where we don't have like a terrible early game feels like pretty easy for us. So that's definitely something that's been hard, I guess, like a change in just weaker junglers early.
I mean, it feels like to me that even the games that you guys fall behind in early, like the EG game was a good example from this last week. What you guys always have done over the past couple of years is continue to take fights and continue to try and get back in the game. So it never really feels like most of the time that you're completely out, even when some unfortunate circumstances happen early in the game, because you're willing to take the fights and willing to try and get back into it. So it hasn't been, I think, as disastrous as you might say.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's disastrous or anything. Like, I don't think us dying early means that the game is insta loss, right? But it does happen pretty often where someone is dying early, and a lot of times it does happen in river. Unironically, when we're fighting for grab. So
I mean, that's just part of
yeah,
the early game, right?
yeah. But when like things go our way and we don't die and we end up getting the objectives, then obviously the games for us are a lot cleaner.
So before we got on, you guys were talking about the latest patch that just came live today. So I think it'd be a good time to kind of talk about what's been going on with this patch and get your preliminary thoughts on it, on what might be strong, because some of the junglers that, well, one of the junglers that has been strong early has been Xin Zhao. So in more of the skirmisher, like ganking, fighting mode. And it seems like a 2-second nerf on his W is not too big of a deal, because if a professional player it was already a pretty long cooldown. If you're going to execute a gank anyway, it's not like you could afford to miss it the first time. So do you think that this is going to have a big effect on the usage of Xin Zhao?
I don't personally think this nerf will do much to Xin. I think you might see people start opening Xin, because right now in the outstates it's like literally permaban, I think. But I think people might start opening it up, but I don't think the nerf will make Xin like bad or anything. I think Xin is still a very strong champ.
Did you have any initial impressions of this champion and the nerf Reignover?
Oh, you mean Xin Zhao?
Yeah.
Honestly, Xin Zhao has been almost perma-banned on every of the games, so I couldn't tell, but the W 2-second nerf at max level seems just whatever nerf because you usually don't use it 2 times anyway. I was thinking if Mundo has an hope, but the more I play, the more I try, it feels like it's kind of whatever. I don't actually think there's like big change in the jungle dispatch compared to other patches where they like change like smites and stuffs. All the changes seems like it's not gonna affect any of the prio, in my opinion.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the Smite changes because I actually haven't heard your professional opinions on these yet. It's a really huge change for the game. It makes it a lot harder if you have that level advantage to kind of outsmite somebody or control objectives. It really prioritizes you using Smite super aggressively in the early game so you can get those charges up and get the 900 damage Smite down later. Has this significantly changed pathing or the way that you guys approach objectives as junglers?
I wouldn't say it changes my pathing or my approach, but I do think it is a buff to Cosmic Insight so that you can reduce your Smite cooldown by 15 seconds each time. And eventually, like if you have Cosmic and they don't, you'll actually just have your 900 Smite 1 minute or like a minute 30 before the enemy jungler. And I mean, if that happens to be a Rift Arrow fight and your Smite does 900 and theirs does 450, then you'll like never lose the objective. I mean, honestly, I don't know why Smite can do 900 damage at like 8 minutes. I think that's a bit.
It does seem pretty ridiculous.
A bit like, I mean, I wouldn't say dumb change, but like, it doesn't seem fair.
Well, you know what's weird
too.
about it is like the rationale behind it, the Smite changes, was to kind of enable more jungle champions, right? So that you could actually get clears with kind of unconventional jungle champions. But that hasn't really happened. Like we haven't seen any weird junglers that have kind of taken place in the meta. Have you experimented with this at all based on the changes that they said they wanted to occur?
I mean, it doesn't do anything for unconventional junglers. Like the Smite doesn't do 900 damage till you're like 4th or 5th clear. That doesn't change the fact that like Zyra jungle can't clear her first rotation.
Well, part of it was like being able to break the crab shield, right?
Yeah.
Without CC.
I mean, that for sure helps like champs like Nidalee and Lilia. But honestly, like right now, because they increased the camp respawn time by 15 seconds, you don't actually even need to break the shield. Like you can kill the crab without breaking the shield like the full time. And one, if you're low, that actually helps you regen because you'll get a lot of health from the Omnivamp. And then by the time you kill it, even without breaking the shield, you'll still be in time for your next rotation of camps, just because the camp respawn timer is longer now. So it's definitely helpful for champs like Lee Sin, Nidalee, Lilia to get on the map faster because you're pretty much like your Smite does 1,000 damage to the crab at level 4 or 3. But for actual like clearing camps, it doesn't do that much.
Do you agree, Reignover? Has there been any significant change that you've noticed with the Smites, or how do you feel about the change in general?
Yeah, I mean, I was hoping that with the Smite change, like other like weak early, jungles to be back, like where they can like farm, like like with the especially with like the jungle camp like spawn timing getting delayed, like if slow clear jungle has hope, or something, but it feels like the item buffs and that item being like really strong. For example, like the what is the name? The Divine Sunder? Yeah. Feels like since that item was really strong, like the champs that like just used that item was just like really strong to just like overcome every of like whatever like weak like scaling jungle to be like ever played in the jungle. So I mean maybe like in the future there can be like if they like buff some other junglers, you can play them out, but right now it seems like there wasn't too much of a change just because of the Smite.
Yeah, and I think as we look at the most recent round of patch notes too, it seems like the buffs on traditional junglers like Graves or Rek'Sai have been really minor. It's like a Q damage increase on Rek'Sai, basic attack damage increase on Graves. Doesn't seem like it's Ivern, I guess, got a buff too, but something tells me, a 20 damage or 20 increase on the base shield of E is not going to be doing a whole lot. So, are you foreseeing the jungle meta kind of is the same as it was? Because it seems like this patch was more focused on the huge stride breaker nerfs, which obviously hurts lane Nocturne, and of course this classic Riot. Don't only nerf the item, you got to nerf the champion as well. So they nerfed his lane sustain at the same time. So when you look at this, are you thinking that there's really going to be any difference in terms of the jungle presence that we've seen so far?
I think jungle presence probably won't change that much. I think the Graves buff is actually pretty good. Generally, when you buff base AD on a champion, it's always good. Like when Caitlyn got 2 extra base AD, she was the most broken champion bot lane apparently. Now I wouldn't say that for Graves because I mean he doesn't have 650 range, so the extra 2 base AD isn't as OP, but it's definitely a pretty good buff. Because I remember they took it away from him before. So I feel like they're just adding it back. And regarding the other champs, I don't think there'll be too much of change unless there's a big shift in like solo laners, because I think every role is like affected by other roles, right? You want to pick champs that are good against the current meta junglers, and you want to pick junglers that are good against the current meta laners. So it's like really dependent on, I think, everything in the game.
What do you guys think about certain junglers that have been effective in other regions that we haven't really seen so much in the LCS? Like we saw, like Fiddlesticks doing some pretty crazy stuff over in LEC, but that really didn't make it over as much to the LCS. Because there's certain, obviously, there are always going to be like regional metas that develop, but are there champions that you've kind of been surprised to see in other regions or surprised have not been seen in the LCS?
I would say like Fiddlesticks was probably played like 3 or 4 times, I think, in Europe, right? And I think Jose Dodo played it once in the LCS. I think Fiddle was a champ that was actually pretty good into Rumble and good into Akali. And it was being practiced in scrims. I think it just wasn't pulled out that much on stage by a lot of teams, even though I do feel like it was practiced for sure. And I think maybe with the Rumble changes, like nerfs, it's not seeing as much play. I will say though, I saw Shaco being played in LPL, and I've thought Shaco's been pretty strong for a while now. So got to see Kanavi pop off with it. So, but they did nerf Shaco this patch, and they nerfed Strybreaker. So,
were you encouraging the Shaco play, Reignover?
I actually haven't watched the game yet, but I'm very interested how he actually played the champion. I want to see like how he make it work. I actually saw his interview though, like why he thought it was good. It was somewhere of like, if I play Shaco, enemy knows that I'm gonna place the box, and they're gonna invade. So if you just prepare for the invade, then you can win the game.
That's just metagaming. That's metagaming your opponent and playing the mind games with them as well. So when you guys look at the rest of the season for Cloud9, locking in playoffs, that's really the focus right now. Like, yes, you've got this last round robin to take a look at, but it's like the rest of the performance is kind of irrelevant. So how are you approaching this mentally from a coaching perspective, Reignover? Because when you're already in the playoffs, is there a certain seed that you'd like to at least achieve so that you can get a bye, or are you mostly looking at let's do some experimentation with the team and with the strategies so that we can have a kind of broad range of tactics available for playoffs? How concerned are you about winning or losing right now versus kind of fixing some of the issues with the team?
I mean, yes, if we can get the top 2 seed, it would be really nice. Because from what I've known, if you like once you're top 2 seed, you just win 1 best of 5 and you go world. That's like a lot of like good benefit as a team. But
Sure.
I feel like right now, we're not in a state where we can just like just focus on that. I feel like we are lacking a lot of fundamentals right now as a team, and then we only have 3 week of LCS, maybe into 1 more week of practice before playoffs. So total of 4 weeks of practice. I feel like it is a short time where we fix all the fundamental mistakes we're making right now. I mean, I do believe we are as a team talking about what we should be working on and what is our problem. So I would say as a team we are recognizing and know what we are trying to do. I just hope that everything just clicks as soon as possible. So right now I would say we're not really thinking too much about let's expand our like play style or champ pool, anything. It's just more of like let's just like find our team identity. And then just like make it solid so that we are ready for whatever team we play.
So when you look at the standings right now, and you guys are tied in third with Team Liquid and Evil Geniuses, and this seems like a pretty tough spot because EG's on this huge win streak right now. Like they're on 8-game win streak, including beating you guys this last week. That means they've almost beaten everybody in the league consecutively in the round robin. So that's pretty impressive to kind of take everybody out. And then you also look at Liquid, who now has Alfari returning at least for some games. Still kind of wondering what they're doing over there, but at least for some games, 2 out of 3 games this last week, he was back at the roster. So we have to assume that they're going to get stronger as well. Meanwhile, 100 Thieves and TSM have like stumbled a little bit recently, but are still ahead of you guys in the standings. How are you looking at these other teams? Because it seems like especially EG and Team Liquid are kind of improving at the right time. And considering you're tied with them right now, are you feeling kind of comfortable with them? Do you think you could handle them? Had that early game with the EG gone differently because you hung with them even at a disadvantage? Or who do you think are the strong teams right now?
I think all the teams, at least in the top 5, are pretty strong. And even in the bottom tier teams, I guess, like it feels like in the LCS, any team can beat any team, and every team is just losing randomly. 100 were like winning every game, I guess, before, but even this week they win 1 and 2. So it just feels like, at least in the LCS, anyone can beat anyone. I think probably the top 5 teams are going to be the biggest threats going into playoffs. Us, EG, TL, TSM, and 100. But I wouldn't say I feel like one team is just way better than any other team right now.
Reignover, give me the Reignover official power rankings of the top 5 in LCS.
Oh, I really don't like doing that.
Don't do it for C9 then. Don't do it for C9.
What top 5?
Top 5. No C9.
No C9, top 5. I mean, EG is winning every game, so I'll give EG first.
All right.
Apparently, they're just too good. I would say. So there's TSM, 100, and TL, right?
We got to pick one more who's not C9. Maybe it's Dignitas, Immortals. What do you think?
Oh, you mean not in order? Just top 5. Okay.
Oh, no, in order. In order.
In order? That's what you want?
Yeah.
Okay, I would say, I mean, EG. Actually, I cannot order. I think they're just like, I feel like the top 5 teams are. I'm going safe way. Top 5 teams are just yeah. I mean, I agree with Blaber. Just like similar. I feel like from like C9's point of view, because I always think on C9's point of view, like if we just like fix our issue, like they're in like a level where we can like just beat them anytime, beat any team anytime. I don't think there's any like one outstanding teams too anyway.
Well, let me ask you a different question. There were a lot of roster moves that were made this last week, including Blaber, your former teammate Licorice, going over to Golden Guardians and doing quite well individually. We saw FlyQuest kind of bring in their academy team as well. You may remember that from this past week. I don't know. So FlyQuest went. I mean, it's hard because it's like kind of a trap game. Like you can't know that's happening. You can't really prepare for it. But this is probably a big surprise to you guys, especially considering that they performed so well. They went 3-0 over the course of this week. What were your initial impressions about some of these teams' movements? Like, let's start with Licorice going to Golden Guardians and having a kind of an outstanding week because he was really struggling on FlyQuest, which is confusing because he's been a top player in his position in the LCS for the past couple of years. What do you think was holding Licorice back, Blaber, as his former teammate, and how do you think he fits better on Golden Guardians?
I'm not actually sure what was holding him back. I honestly think the whole team was just doomed. Not like any individual players. I think they honestly, I think they're not actually bad. Like their players on their team. And I wasn't sure why they were doing so poorly. Maybe they just didn't work together very well as a team. But I honestly expected them to get academy team subbed in after 10 games lost in a row. That's yeah. I mean, I from an org standpoint, it makes sense. They don't know what's wrong. I'm sure the players are getting stressed out too from all the losses. And I think Eric's looked really good in his last week on GGS, and I honestly I didn't expect the move at all because I mean they were doing pretty well with Solo, and I wouldn't say Solo was carrying their team or anything, but he definitely wasn't doing terribly, and they were winning a lot compared to Spring. So it was definitely a surprising move for me, but I'm happy for him. And yeah, it looks like the Fly guys are doing pretty well in LCS. I'm still kind of triggered we lost them. That game was I mean, that game was Turbo Omega free, and I mean, we just threw really bad.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you, Reignover, about that because there was one of your players from last year from Academy Diamond on that roster. You're very familiar with him as a support player, and probably familiar with many of the other players that are on that team as well. Have you thought for a while that these guys are LCS caliber, or what was the experience of working with them in Academy or playing against them in Academy that you brought to the match this year, or your expectations for this new FlyQuest roster?
Yeah, I mean, there was Tomo also that I was working with when I was in academy. So I mean, first of all, I was extremely happy that they are having a shot in LCS. I mean, I guess Diamond had the shot before, but specifically for Tomo. I mean, I don't know what I can say, but working with them, I mean, I see that. I mean, the time when I was working in academy, all the LCS team, we've been playing against them, and we would always say that the level or the gap is not there at all. So I mean I was always expecting that they can be totally fine anytime in the LCS stages, and they're kind of showing. They went through 0, so and even beat us. So I'm just happy with them, and I was expecting that they'll do well. Yeah.
I mean, probably not sustainable for them in the long term. The 3-0 is a pretty big result, and I think a lot of teams probably weren't taking them super seriously. And once there's more game footage against them against LCS teams, I assume that the prep will be easier for LCS teams, and they probably can't maintain this momentum, but it certainly is an auspicious start for the new roster. Let's actually do our Puma giveaway now. So as you guys know, if you type hashtag Puma in the chat and you are over 18 and live in North America, you have a chance to win that $100 Puma gift card. So we'll do that now, and so we can have a winner by the end of the show. So keep an eye on chat, and I'm sure Cloud9 will let the winner know in the overall chat. But we've got some other stuff we can do first. So I'd like to take a look at some of the plays that you from the game you won against Dignitas this last week, and get your thoughts on how the game flow is going, what the critical moments are. And of course, this is sponsored by AT&T 5G, fast, reliable, and secure. So we have a clip starting with you guys catching out Aframu in the mid lane very quickly, which we can take a look at right now over on your screens on Discord if you guys want to kind of walk us through this. So the setup was clearing some vision around the Baron, and Aframu kind of inexplicably jumps forward here onto a minion, and you guys react by instantly catching him out. So what's the call, Blaber, right now? Because you're just in on Diana.
Well, nothing's actually being said here to engage. It's actually, the whole comms here are back up, play slow, and then I'm like, wait, Brahms inting, hit him. And then Vulcan's just saying play slow, and then I don't really say anything, and I just flash in. I say look or something, and then we just all engage, and then even after we kill him, we're talking about kiting back, but then Fudge sees an angle himself, and he just flashes in himself, and I think those comms are pretty good, talking about like playing slow. But if someone ever sees an angle to make it engage, you should always trust your teammates will follow up.
And yeah, I mean, you had to make that call basically instantly because Braum jumps to the minion, and then you end up flashing to the backline to get the four-man Diana ult, which looks really good. Now, this is the securing of the game right here. You're on Ocean Soul Point at the moment, and so you're setting up. Looks great. You've got the Mega Gnar already good to go, so you start the Dragon knowing that they basically have to walk into you, and Fudge is able to get a pretty good Gnar ult, and you clean up the fight. Blaber, you're a little bit late here, but end up getting into the mix at the end. So what was the comms going on right now? Because it seemed, good to start the Dragon while the Mega Gnar was up, but also you weren't quite there yet, so there was an element of risk to it, let's say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of just calling that, like, I'm kind of far, like, wait for me, and then they're like, no, we can win this, and then Fudge just says, like, I'm gonna zone Rumble, like, hit the drag or something, but we ended up obviously not finishing the drag, and we kind of just turned for the fight, and, I mean, they were just, I think at that point, they were just, like, too far gone. They were too far behind, I think.
And Reignover, from a coaching perspective, we'll see the clip start over again, and so you got to be happy about the kind of initiative they took on to Aframu's Braum. There was a little bit of shady stuff towards the tier 2 turret at the play, like both Perks and Sven were maybe a little bit too deep or over aggressive around that turret. But then the Dragon fight also played out pretty smoothly. So were there any criticisms or things that you thought the team did particularly well in the Dignitas game that we're looking at right now?
I actually just pulled out the voting, so I wasn't able to watch. But I think the mid team fight you're talking about, like from listening live, I thought the communication was like extremely good. I really like the way we like calm ourselves, because we usually have a lot of like issue us not being calm in this kind of fights and not making the right decision after. So that was good. But the second VOD, I do think we could wait a little bit more before we start to make it a little bit more safer, and also we could like communicate better about like what we can do with like the Fudge position we have, because they don't really see where's Fudge, and maybe we could like turn in a better way if like Fudge use ulti to like pull it toward us, but generally like we played that fight really well. Fudge was doing such a good job zoning them, like making space for us. So I do think this 2 specific play was working really well for us.
Yeah, so this was the little bit of a dodgy part right here. Like Perks maybe going a little bit too hard on Yasui, and Sven's flashing forward to try and kill Acadian. Only ends up chucking him a little bit below 50%. But we can take a look at the team fight here, where you're talking about Fudge's positioning, because they don't have any wards. I mean, they're forced to TP, and you guys blow Aframo's flash right at the start of the fight, which is huge for you. So they see Fudge right there, but they don't know whether he's on Dragon or not currently. It's very good positioning. And you said you might have had him scoop towards you instead of away?
Yeah, I mean, he could like pull it toward left, and then Lucian could potentially like kill them or hit them like faster too. But ideally we hit a little bit more slower, so we don't have to like be in this spot. Like we can just take this fight more when Diana is closer. But I think the timing was good generally. I don't think there was like too much to talk about for this play. I think it was good generally.
All right. Well, thanks for taking a look at that clip. When we talk about this game, it was a pretty clean game overall for you guys. It felt like a very convincing win. What was the difference for you between the communication this game that you had compared to some of your other games, like the FlyQuest and EG games this past week?
I wouldn't say communication was that different. I think we had some. I wouldn't even say it's communication issues, but like I think all 3 games this weekend we had like some misplays early. We just happened to win this one, because I remember I died bottom this game, and I think communication was generally pretty good. It's obviously easier to communicate your win conditions in a winning game. In a losing game, you're kind of just like stalling and talking about when you're gonna power spike, where you're gonna hold vision. And then obviously if they walk into like a certain choke, you're like, hey, we'll fight them if they walk into this choke, and we need to defend these bushes. And you're kind of just waiting for like win cons. But I think communication overall this weekend wasn't the worst. I think we just misplayed a bit in the games that we lost.
Were there any coaching takeaways that you had, Reignover?
Yeah, I mean, the loss we had this week is just like very obvious, like judgment, decision making mistakes or flaws, I would say. I think we have had some communication issues before, and we were talking about it, and I feel like our communication is good, but since we're like talking maybe too much about the communication, we rely like too much on communication, and maybe it's causing us like having some bad decision making because of communication, you know. Um, but I feel like I agree with Blaber, where it's just more of like just decision making and individual mistakes. So yeah, I mean that's it.
Well, let's take a look at some of Blaber's stats, because we do have the Cloud9 Stat Hub powered by Microsoft, which is they provide a lot of proprietary stats and kind of analytics to you guys, which is very helpful from them as a partner. And so we have his stats versus Acadian. This is over just the summer split games right now. And Blaber, you're actually top of the league when it comes to CS differential at 10. And interesting to hear you guys talking about the pathing and how you guys were approaching the early game earlier and really focusing on that, because you've actually seen that reflected in the stats itself. Also, a lot of people are going to look at your average deaths right there, Blaber, because you actually are on the higher side of average deaths and team percentage of deaths as well, as it turns out when I was taking a look. But what people don't talk about is that you have a 55.6% first blood kill assist percentage, which is the #1 jungler in the league. So you may be dying, but you're also creating a lot of first blood opportunities for the team. And you talked a bit earlier about how sometimes you're getting those big snowball advantages in the early game. Sometimes you're falling a little bit behind. I think it's reflected here. So what are your initial impressions of looking at this? Because very interesting. You guys have the same KDA as Acadian, but there's a pretty big difference in terms of your CS and then your participation in first bloods.
I mean, I don't think too much about stats, honestly. I think I've had some insane stats in the past couple splits. But
True.
this split, I feel like since we've been losing more, obviously my stats are going to be worse. And I do know myself, and I know I die a lot more than other junglers.
But you also get a lot more kills. That's the
True.
thing, though. Like having 55% first blood on a jungler is really high, really high.
I think I just die more when the games are losing. Like when we're starting to lose the game, I die more because I'm looking for like opportunities or engages to get back in the game, and I don't really play for KDA. Like when the game's kind of over, you also kind of just die. Like a lot of people just die when the game's already lost. I mean, you can like sit in base and play for KDA when the game's lost, but
well, especially
really
when you're on
honestly.
Diana, when your job is engaging, and engaging when you're losing is usually you're the first one to go in that case.
Yeah, it's like Jarvan. Like if you're winning as Jarvan, you'll have like a 25 KDA, and when you're losing as Jarvan, you're gonna be like 1 in 10. If you're still in the game for that long, right? Like if you're just fighting.
Well, you can take a look at your stats versus Svenskeren too, which is now Svenskeren has only played 16 games compared to the 18 because they've subbed in contracts a couple of times. You can see still you have a huge advantage in the first blood kill assist percentage, little less KDA, slightly fewer deaths for Svenskeren. But you can still see that there's this huge gap between the initial contribution to the game, which I think is one of your greatest strengths as a player and what you offer as a jungler.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely agree that my early game is one of my strengths as a player, but I think a lot of that is being like hurt right now because of our deaths in the early game, and
Sure.
like obviously we talked about it, right? But if that's something that we can work on going in the future and like legitimately just stop dying in the first 8 minutes of the game for absolutely no reason. Like it's different if it's like a coordinated play by the enemy team, right? And they play it well and stuff, but we're kind of just like inting at this point. And
especially in this game, this one was bad.
Yeah, like we're like I mean, like this game specifically, it's like top laner dives a 3-minute gank, and then we're still calling to fight for the crab, even though Renekton is sitting on the crab with like 80 fury or something. It's like completely turbo unwinnable, and we're still saying like we can fight.
And they have a ward in the brush, so you can't even
and it's
hide
like,
in the
and I'm
pixel
just
brush.
like, wow, this game is just lost from 4 minutes, so definitely that's something we need to work on. But if we just stop dying early, I think I'll be able to at least use the advantages that I generally am able to get, and I think our games will become a lot simpler.
Reignover, what do you think? What are the causes of these, as Blaber says, inting before 8 minutes that you're trying to work on right now? Is it like early game planning, or when something unexpected happens, do the players just kind of go all in or take fights instead of backing off? What do you think are the biggest causes right now?
Yeah, I mean, if I know all the causes, then we would have obviously fixed it, and it will never happen.
Sure, I
But
understand
yeah,
that.
but the feeling I would say is just like the habits. I mean, I feel like like, since, as I said, like, just like the question before, maybe we're getting too much baited by like the communications we're doing. We're trying to help uh each other, obviously, but it might be hurting like our personal like decision making with like the teammates call. Maybe we're like trusting too much. Maybe we should like just trust ourselves more and then just focus on individual, and then just focus on the screen that you have, because I feel like all this decision makes all these like fights, we would have like make the better decision I assume, if there's like no comms around it. And also I feel like it's coming from like the habit that we used to had like in the past years or splits, where we used to play a lot of strong champs and we just win. I mean, there's like so much game. I mean, right now we're losing a lot of game just by like early crubs, but we used to win a lot of games because of these crub fights too. And then
True.
usually
True.
we're the team that just makes everyone just like run away. We're the team that always goes for a double crub. Like, we just had a lot of advantages and success, and maybe those kind of like habits are making us like fight more of these spots because we're expecting us to win more. Um, but like for like the fix, I would say um, we're working toward just talking about like what is the other option, like if we give up stuff, so that like we don't like feel desperate when we give up. If we're in a spot where we have to give up, we just have to trust that we're gonna be fine later, just by just looking at the screen right now. Or even though we lose this here, like we can get more later. And just keep thinking and then talking about win condition, like we will actually be in a better spot if they don't get lead here. Like, we just recognize what's their strength, what's our strength, and then just play around it. And since the meta is that we just have to like adjust. But for now, we have not been adjusting like too much well about it, but we are thinking about it more seriously. We are touching it seriously too, so hopefully it's gonna get fixed. And then once we fix this, I really believe, like especially with like Blaber just being really 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 good early game, we can just be like the outstanding team if you just fix this kind of issues.
I mean, I agree, especially because your late games, even in the circumstances that you guys struggle early, late games often still look very winnable for you because you can make the correct calls. Out of curiosity, this is an idea that Nelson, who's now on G2, has pushed forward. If you guys are having over communication issues in the early games, have you ever tried doing silent scrims or had that kind of practice?
We're talking about it. We actually haven't been able to do it. But that's something we've been talking about since like 2 weeks ago, I think, or 3 weeks ago.
They'll
We
probably try
wanted
today.
to, yeah, we'll actually do it today. Like, we actually talked about it like on the staff meeting that we're gonna try today. But
Oh,
we're
how
trying to
convenient.
do like, because like we only have like 3 days of scrim.
Right.
So like it's very limited, and then we don't want to ruin any of the days. So we were planning to do like before the day we have a like before the night block, but we've been like failing or like having hard time booking the night block recently. So we were like delaying, oh, maybe next week when we have night block.
Got it.
But from this week we have night block, so we can put it in today,
All right.
so it's good.
Well, thank you for Microsoft for the Stat Hub. Very appreciated here. So we can take a look at some of that and have shape our conversations, which has helped us talk about the early game here. Let's talk about the practice a little bit, because one thing that on the last episode that Sven said, which I thought was very interesting, is that he liked Academy because they had more practice time. They didn't have to spend time going to the studio either, so there was more time for solo queue. There were fewer days of games, so it was a lot easier to get the practice in. And you guys mentioned having the night blocks. That's been something that has been increasingly common with LCS teams, is doing another 5-game series in the evenings. How have you guys felt about the practice this year and the move to 3 days a week overall? Because it seems like that's not been very well received by many players.
You can go.
I personally don't like scrimming only 3 days compared to the old scrimming 4 days, I guess. I just feel like you don't get enough practice for your stage matches. I feel like compared to every other region, we get actually less practice and less stage time.
Yep, you
So
do.
like I'm not sure how this is benefiting North America at all.
And worse practice. Don't
Yeah,
forget that.
and worse practice. And 60 ping, but we can move on from that. But I just like we have less days of practice than LPL and LCK, and we also play less stage games than LPL and LCK. So we're just hindering ourselves, I guess. But I think there's like not much to do about that. It's just there's a lot you want to practice during the week. For example, if I want to play some random jungle champ, right? Um, that's not meta, and I only have like 1 day now to test it because generally you want to do your stage drafts for like at least 1 day or even 2 days, right? And with one less day of practice, if I lose both my Yumi jungle games, then we'll probably be like, oh, we don't want to ever play this again because we lost like every game.
Sure.
But
Yeah.
I could only have played it 1 or 2 games because I don't get that much time to try it, right? So it's definitely a lot harder to pull out new picks if you're not instantly having success with them in scrims, even if you think they could potentially be good.
So first off, it looks like Miro has won the Puma gift card giveaway. So congratulations. Also, if you guys have any questions in chat, if you have some good ones, I will ask them to Blaber and Reignover. So go start typing away. And now for Reignover, same idea here. You went from the academy system last year, where you did have more practice days, to the fewer practice days this year. Has that affected your coaching at all, or is it something you'd like to kind of move back towards the basically extra day of practice that you get in academy?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, 4 days of practice will benefit the team to improve way more than 3 days. I feel like just like shortened day, like especially like 3 days of scrim is like making hard to find a balance in a team to where like how much time should we put to practice or experience stuff, or how much time should we look to like mastery and spam the same comp or same champ, because like the patch changes is fast, and there's like 3 team every week that you have to like prepare every best of one, and you have 3 days of scrim. You don't know which side you're gonna be on. At the same time, there's a lot of things you want to work on as a team. Um, so I would say just like finding balance has been like really hard. So 4 days would definitely make everything more like organized, I would say, and it will like make team progress better. So I'll definitely, if I vote, I'll definitely vote for 4 days of scrim and then 2 days of game where it's like best of 3 competitive match would be like most ideal to me.
You said you'd also been having trouble finding scrims in the night block, which is kind of a new thing that LCS teams are doing this year that didn't really happen last year at all. Is that because not many teams have been wanting to do the night block, or what's the reasoning behind that?
Well, I'm not for sure know what is the reasoning. I mean, it's usually when it comes to night block, it's not like another 5 game. It's just like 2 or 3 game, probably like a 2 hour like session after the first scrim. So we've been like trying to convince the team, as I know, is like try 4 games into break into like 2 games of like a one block, or just like 5 games straight, like a normal block into like 2 or 3 extra game at the night. But I feel like we've been trying to get this night block since like few weeks ago, like maybe 3 to 4 weeks ago. But so far we only have like 1 or 2, in my opinion, from my memory. So it seems like from this week we're having easier time to actually get those scrims on, especially like playoff coming in. Maybe like the teams are willing to practice more. But I would also say it could be coming from us not being the best scrim partner, because we've been not
Have you been
giving
running
the
it
most
down?
consistent scrim performance. So that could be it, but I'm not really 100% sure what's the exact reason, because I do see, like, when I go to the TR the tournament room, I do see teams screaming Nightblock, but maybe they just think we're not the good scrim partner or something. It's just
Fair
potential,
enough.
and I don't know, so.
Fair enough. All right, we do have some good fan questions here, and I think this is a good one to start with for you, Blaber, which is like, how do you deal with community flame and not let it get to you, especially after MSI? People were having a lot of unreal expectations, and I find personally it pretty ridiculous to flame you because you've been the fucking MVP of the league 2 out of the last 3 splits, so it seems pretty unreasonable. But is there anything that you do just to deal with it?
Nothing in particular. I mean, it doesn't get to me that badly. Like most of the flame is around like dying at crab and stuff like this.
Oh, it's just a
But like,
meme now.
yeah, I mean, it's a meme, but like, it's true, kind of. I mean, the
Oh,
thing
it's
is
definitely
like,
true.
yeah, I mean, the thing is like,
It's just not always your fault. That's the thing.
the thing is like, fighting for objectives or like crab is kind of an objective. It's not like up to me. Like, contrary to popular belief, like it's not up to the juggler. I'm not like yelling like, "Hey, fight this or I'm gonna AFK the game." It's like my laners are telling me like we can fight for it,
Right,
Um,
of course.
so it's like obviously a partially up to me because I'm going for the fight as well, but it's like a team thing, and um, I don't like care about it too much. I think I've learned, like, I've actually been playing for a while now, and I've learned to not take criticism or praise like that much, because when I'm playing well, people are saying like I'm insane, right? I'm so fucking good. And then when I'm playing really poorly, I'm like the worst player in the world, and how am I even a pro player and stuff like that. So it's like it always goes to
How is this
extremes.
multiple time MVP, a
Yeah.
professional player? What a shitter.
Like it always goes to extremes, and like you play bad for like, I don't know, a couple weeks, and it's like, wow, he should just retire. So it's like it's always extremes. I feel like always is a strong word, but so I don't look at it too much, because I think if you look at what people say about you too much, then I don't think it's going to be super healthy.
Yes, I think that's a very good mentality that you have there. Let's so here, something people may not know, and I will preface this question with this, is that the LCS Players Association has a new head in Phil Aram, and as well as a new board, and they've been visiting all of the teams and talking to the professional players. So I know that they've been to every single team house right now and spoken with you guys. So has there been any progress, this person is asking, on fixing server or ping issues for pros, or your concerns on that?
Well, he definitely came to our house and or the C9 house and discussed with all the players about issues, but regarding the server and ping stuff, that's not really up to the player association, sadly. They can't really make Riot add a California only server, or lower the ping for us.
I mean, they could move you all to Chicago. That's something they could do.
Yeah,
There's actually no reason the LCS has to be in LA.
that's true. Like they could move it to Chicago, but from the same argument, you could just move the server to LA. So I don't think there's been any progress regarding ping situation, but um, I feel like they've had progress in other areas. I don't know too much about this. Probably better to ask Darshan, our president. So,
Mr. President. Well,
Mr.
we'll get
President.
to him. We'll get to him a different time. We'll ask some jungle specific questions because both of you guys are current or former professional junglers / jungle coaches. So what are your thoughts on viable jungle champs in pro play? We saw Closer on Olaf. Indeed, 100 Thieves won their last game that Closer played on Olaf. He popped off a little bit. That's long been the Blaber classic. But it hasn't been prevalent for other teams. Are there other niche champs that can be played other than the meta champs of like Diana, Rumble, Viego, these kind of champs?
I wouldn't say they're like niche. I would actually say like those champs are like really meta. Diana, Rumble, and Viego. I guess Rumble's a bit niche right now.
No. Are there other niche champs?
Oh,
like,
are there other ones?
He's saying that the meta. These are the meta champs. Are there any kind of like edge case junglers, more like Olaf?
I think Olaf might be niche right now, but if you've actually watched games around the world, mainly in China and a little bit in Korea, they're actually playing Olaf a lot now, and its presence is rising pretty highly. Obviously good for C9, but yeah, there are definitely like some picks. I think it's going to be hard to say because if I was on 11-13, I would actually say that I think Shaco might be a champ you might actually see. But because we're on a new patch, and I think NA actually plays on a new patch before any other region does. Actually, EU plays first and on Fridays, but we pretty much play at the same time, so you can't really change your draft from the morning 3 hours before your game.
Sure.
I mean, I guess you could, but it's like you don't really know because we haven't practiced on this patch at all either. Today it's going to be our first day of practice on 11-14, and we can't really watch any other regions play on 11-14 because they're still on 11-13. So it's like it's hard to know niche picks, I guess, on a new patch.
Do you think there are any other edge cases Reignover, like some champs that you think could be powerful in the jungle that you haven't really seen yet?
I feel like everything that has potential has been pretty much played in professionally this season, is my opinion. Maybe yeah, I mean, I feel like most of the stuffs that people think has potential is already being played, so I cannot really think about another niche pick.
Here's a good question for you, Reignover. How do you feel about players taking advice from analysts or players from different leagues? So maybe like talking to people from Europe or Korea, coaches or other players. Do you think it undermines your coaching staff or your ability as a coach, or do you like the fact that they have additional perspectives?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
So a lot of professional players will talk to each other. So for example, Blaber might go and talk to some LEC junglers, or some LEC team analysts might talk to Blaber or whatever. Do you think it like undermines your coaching? Like it kind of takes away from your authority as a coach, or do you like having all of the perspectives? Because I'm sure you talk to other Korean and coaches as well to kind of get their perspective.
Well, I mean, I think there's just way more benefits than anything. I mean, I don't know what's the negative about talking with the player or coaches from other region. I mean, you're sharing informations, and from the information you have been like shared, you can like explain or express it with like the team meeting or anywhere, like just anytime, and it will just give more ideas. And just talking more about the meta or the champion, it's always going to be beneficial. So I don't see why it's ever gonna be a bad thing. I think it's 100%. I think it's just like 200% benefit.
Yeah,
always.
I agree with you. Let's do a couple more questions, starting with Blaber. People want to know, I've had a couple of questions. Do you have like a morning ritual before games or anything that you do prior to your matches to get yourself in the right headspace?
Before I used to have a routine. It was like when there were stage matches, I would drink like Mountain Dew, and then I would eat like some sort of chip, some random one that Riot has, and then I would listen to music and walk around by myself for like 20 minutes. But now it's like kind of messed up because we have like a meeting while we're at Riot, so like I have to be at the meeting, and then I can't really like walk around listening to music by myself. And then also like makeup now is like optional, so it's not required. So like sometimes you go and sometimes you don't. And I don't really have a routine right now, but I do like to listen to music before I play.
So I'm going to ask this: which music? Because that's going to be the next question.
I actually don't care. To me, music is just noise, and I just put on like whatever's the most popular. Like I'll just put on today's top hits or something. And it kind of just like I don't actually listen to the music that intensely myself. I kind of just like the noise in the background, and it also tunes out my teammates yelling. So it's definitely good.
So you guys mentioned that at the start of the show that you've been together watching a bunch of the pathing and decision making from some of the top junglers in the world. So question is, which junglers do you guys think are really the best, and that you like to follow in LPL and LCK? So Reignover, let's start with you. Are there any junglers that you you like watching and you're like, hey, Blaber, let's take a look at this guy's pathing in particular?
I mean, I don't think it's like you look at some specific person or player. It's just watching top teams and then just find out any interesting pattern or any interesting path or just anything that we are not considering as a team. Then you just like talk about it and discuss about it. So I would say just watching games and trying to find out anything if we're missing something or trying to like discuss what are they knowing that we don't know, you know? So I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I agree with Reignover on that point. I pretty much watch like every LPL VOD, unless I guess it's like 2 1A teams playing each other. Then I don't really watch it. But I pretty much watch all the top teams play from LPL and the middle of the pack teams, and I definitely watch all of Damwon's games. I think for me personally, when I played at MSI, it felt the hardest to jungle against Damwon. I think Canyon is like obviously a really good jungler, and I think in general Damwon plays around the jungle role really well, especially when he plays champs that farm. Like if you watch the way they play around Graves, like for example, he's really good at that champ. They actually he just power clears. They give him like the best leashes. They don't play like they need a jungler for the first like 15 minutes of the game. And I think they do like a really good job of that. So that's definitely like stuff that I look into and how I can become efficient like that, because when you're playing champs like Graves, you obviously need items before you can be useful.
Excellent. Well, that'll do it with the Q&A and with the show for today, because we're at the hour and you guys need to go get your meetings in so you can silence Scrim before practice. I look forward to hearing how that goes, because the next time I'll be hearing about that is in a month. The next League of Legends show will be on Tuesday, August 10th here on the Nines, presented by AT&T. Otherwise, though, I'm sure you can catch also on the Cloud9 channel here. They've been doing Valorant shows hosted by DDK. So if you want to learn more about Valorant and Cloud9's rosters for that game, you can check that out as well. Thank you very much for joining me, Blaber and Reignover. Appreciate your time. Good luck with your very quiet scrims today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.